ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له من يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده. إنما مثل الحياة الدنيا كماء إن أنزلناه من السماء فاختلط به نبات الأرض مما يأكل الناس والأنعام حتى إذا أخذت الأرض زخرفها وزينت وظن أهلها أنهم قادرون عليها أتاها أمرنا ليلا أو نهارا فجعلناها حصيدا كأن لم تغن بالأمس كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يتفكرون والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم للذين أحسنوا الحسنى وزيادة ولا يرهق وجوههم قتر ولا ذلة أولئك أصحاب الجنة هم فيها خالدون. صدق الله العظيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. اللهم أرنا حقيقة الأشياء كما هي. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. آمين يا رب العالمين. Alrighty, then Surah Yunus, we got until the 24th ayah. We're going to start with the 25th today. We've been seeing throughout this surah, one of the main themes that is being critiqued is the idea or um, this not wanting to meet Allah. Uh, Coming from the people who are rejecting the ayat of Allah. And why do they not want to meet Allah is because they want everything here in this dunya. As far as this world is concerned, that is to the exclusion of the hereafter, their sole focus. And so any ayat that tell them otherwise are not going to listen to it. They have very conveniently forged their religion such that it also puts hayatul dunya at the center, and akhirah is as good as not there. Whatever of akhirah is there is completely irrelevant, other than the fact that it provides some consolation, some reassurance, and that's about it. They have the salvation anxiety that gets taken care of. So some intercessors here, some deities there, whatever spiritual needs they have, religion gives them what they need, but doesn't ask anything much of them. Whatever it does ask of them is, again, very fixed, very particular, usually having no social bearing in terms of social responsibility, social justice, giving, none of that stuff. And so they wanted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to also forge his religion, quote unquote, uh, in that way as well. He's telling them, this is not my religion. I did not come up with it. I did not fabricate it. This is something that I have been granted by Allah. I myself have to submit to it. And so they're being told that this attitude that you have, where is it coming from? It is coming from this perspective of dunya as the exclusive center of your attention, to the exclusion of all else. And so a parable is given for that, like rain, and rain is a blessing. The crop that comes at the as a result of the rain, and you've worked hard for that crop as well, it's a blessing, and it's strong, and it looks attractive, it looks awesome, and you feel like you have control over it. Just don't get deluded by that feeling of control over it, that that's absolute, that that's eternal, that that's never going to go away. At any moment, you might lose it. Don't take life for granted. Don't take life of dunya for granted. Don't think that you have an eternity at your disposal. There needs to be a certain urgency when it comes to fulfilling your responsibilities. And so get to it. You don't know when this crop is wiped out. أتاها أمرنا ليلا أو نهارا فجعلناها حصيدا. And what's left of it is as if there was nothing there, harvested completely. Not a single grain. كأن لم تغن بالأمس كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يتفكرون. والله يدعو إلى دار السلام. And Allah invites you to the home of peace. ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. And He guides whoever wants to a straight path. This is, it's not that Allah is inviting you towards anything which is, which isn't good for you in the long run. What this path leads towards is home of peace. And this home of peace, looked at in multiple ways, is a home of peace here in this world, but after a lot of struggle, after a lot of conflict, as we saw when these ayat are being revealed again towards the end of the Meccan period. And then what follows was a lot of conflict. Eventually and ultimately in the hereafter. لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً. For people of excellence, for people who look to work, do their best, looking to bring the best of their efforts towards Allah. For them is going to be that which is husna, which is also beautiful. They're people of excellence, they get an excellence reward. They're people of beauty, they get a beautiful reward. They're people looking to do their best, they will get the best. وَزِيَادَةً, and even more than that. وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيد, Allah says that there's so much more. You can't even conceive of what we have in store for you. وَلَا يَرْهَقُ وُجُوهَهُمْ قَتَرٌ وَلَا ذِلَّةٌ. Neither darkness nor humiliation will cover their faces, because that is the hallmark of the people of Jahannam. As far as the people of Jannah are concerned, it's going to be cleared from them. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ, these are the people of paradise, هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ, and they're going to live therein forever. وَالَّذِينَ كَسَبُوا السَّيِّئَاتِ, and those who earn evil through their deeds, they do evil deeds. جَزَاءُ السَّيِّئَةٍ بِمِثْلِهَا, their reward is an evil which is similar to it. It's not that they're going to get any multiplication of their evil is going to be corresponding to exactly what they have done. وَتَرْهَقُهُمْ ذِلَّةٌ, and humiliation will cover them. مَا لَهُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ عَاصِمٍ, and they will have no one to protect them other than Allah. كَأَنَّمَا أُغْشِيَتْ وُجُوهُهُمْ قِطَعًا مِّنَ اللَّيْلِ مُظْلِمًا, it will appear as if their faces are covered with patches of dense darkness of night. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ, these are the people of the fire, and they're going to live there forever. وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا, on the day we gather them all together. ثُمَّ نَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, and then we say to those who ascribe associates with Allah, مَكَانَكُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَشُرَكَاؤُكُمْ, stay where you are, you and your associates, whoever of your friends or whoever of your deities that you had, dead or alive, people that you had taken in place of Allah, people who had become that source of authority for you, that didn't let you do anything other than whatever that tradition or whatever that status quo held. مَكَانَكُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَشُرَكَاؤُكُمْ فَزَيَّلْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ, and so we will separate them from each other. وَقَالَ شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ, and their associates will say to them, مَا كُنْتُمْ إِيَّانَا تَعْبُدُونَ, you did not worship us. Their associates, now these associates, their dead ancestors or their deities, either way, they're declaring themselves completely absolved. They're declaring themselves to have nothing to do with those who used to worship them. And letting everybody know, letting the cat out of the bag that, you know what? You just used our name. You were just selling our name. You were worshiping yourselves. You were worshiping your desires. You were just giving the name, giving it complicated names of religious or spiritual bearing, but at the end of the day, it was all you. فَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. Allah is enough as a witness between us and you. إِن كُنَّا عِنْ عِبَادَتِكُمْ لَغَافِلِينَ. We were completely unaware of your worship. And these may even be very righteous people in the past, because those are the names that are the most convenient to use, to sell, to hide behind. Isa alayhi salam being the most prominent example. هُنَالِكَ تَبْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ. There, every individual will experience what he had sent forth. Again, what is the critical difference between what idolatry does to a personality and what Tawheed does to a personality? Idolatry in terms of the actions sent forth, it compromises them big time. Most of what you will find there is entirely selfish. And what Tawheed evokes from a person is more and more relationship, more and more goodness, justice, empowerment, the whole lot that we've been speaking of. Since the very beginning, we've been seeing it mentioned, spending in the way of Allah. وَرُدُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ مَوْلَاهُمُ الْحَقِّ. And they will be returned to Allah, their true Mawla, their real protector and friend. وَضَلَّ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. And whatever they used to fabricate against Allah, other than Allah, will be lost for them, will be lost from them. It'll have no bearing. It'll leave them stranded. قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Ask them, who provides you from the heavens and the earth? أَمَّنْ يَمْلِكُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارِ. Or who controls the hearing and sight? وَمَنْ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ. Who is the one who brings out the living from the dead? وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. And brings about the dead from the living. وَمَنْ يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرِ. And who plans all affairs? That there is so much in your own surrounding that you see with respect to the rizq that you get. That things that are as different from each other as sky and earth, how both of you at the end of the day are providing you. That your rizq is coming from the skies, it's coming from the earth. That you, as the center of this creation, has biologically pretty much everything that you need to benefit from the rizq that is coming from poles apart, literally on earth as well as between the heavens and the earth. Who is it that gives you that? Who is it that placed all of this there for you, made it for you and you for it? And then your hearing and your sight, your abilities, your faculties of learning, of attaining to knowledge. Who gave you all of that? So you have all of this provision, this rizq to survive, not just survive, but thrive. And then you have these faculties to know, to attain knowledge. And then you have these phenomena of life and death around you, where you're constantly seeing this life coming from death and death coming from life. And you're conscious of, or you have the ability to be conscious of the yudabbirul amr, that this is meticulously planned. And reality as you know it is being actively planned. It is not random. It is not chance. That it is way too meaningful. It is way too directional. It is way too responsive for it to be randomness, for it to be blind, for it to be chance. Just the directional, meaningful progression of life and death tells you that much. فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهِ. There they will reply Allah. And of course, we have to say this. We have to elaborate this. The desert Bedouin 14 centuries ago, these were straightforward questions. This was a no-brainer. But now, with all the intellectual capacities that we have developed and refined, these are not obvious answers anymore. The Quran's starting point was to take these people forward, for whom this answer was, at least they had got this foundational level down, and now you could carry the conversation forward. You can't take that for granted anymore. فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهِ. They would have said, they would immediately reply, Allah. فَقُلْ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. So tell them, Ya Rasulullah, are you not going to then attain taqwa? Are you not going to, is that not going to reflect in your action? Is that not going to reflect in a level of discipline that you're going to bring into your lives? Are you not going to mind what you do and save yourselves? Are you not going to be aware of Him in your practice? فَذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمُ الْحَقِّ. That same Allah is your Rabb, your true Rabb. What does it mean for Him to be your true Rabb? Al-Haqq. Rabbukum al-Haqq. That this belief should have a bearing on your lifestyle, on your conduct, on your choices. That His rububiyyah needs to be taken into consideration meaningfully, with a recognition of consequence. فَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. So what is left after truth except misguidance? You want to let this go? Okay, what is it that you're holding on to then? What basis does that have? فَأَنَّ تُصْرَفُونَ. How can you then be turned away? كَذَلِكَ حَقَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْفَسَقُوا. So that is how the word of your Rabb will prove true against the transgressors. أَنَّهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Because they will not believe. قُلْ هَلْ مِنْ شُرَكَائِكُمْ. So ask them, is there any from your nominated associates, these shuraka that you have, مَنْ يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ, who starts creation and is able to repeat it afterwards? Is there any power that you can associate to any of them that makes them capable of doing this? قُلِ اللَّهُ يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ. Tell them Allah starts creation and then He will repeat it. Is there anything that has that power that Allah has? فَأَنَّا تُؤْفَكُونَ. So how then are you deluded? قُلْ هَلْ مِنْ شُرَكَائِكُمْ. Ask them, is there anyone from your nominated associates, مَنْ يَهْدِي إِلَى الْحَقِّ, who guides to the truth? You see Him guiding towards the truth in so many different ways. There's guidance for you to travel from one place to another. There's guidance for you as to what is going to be nutritious for you and what is not, what is poisonous. There's guidance for you there in the physical material world. And there's guidance for you as to what to do and what not to do. In its most refined, pristine, protected form as the Quran. قُلْ لِلَّهُ يَهْدِي لِلْحَقِّ. So tell them, Allah guides to the truth. أَفَمَنْ يَهْدِي إِلَى الْحَقِّ. So is the one who guides to the truth أَحَقُّ أَنْ يُتَّبَعَ, more worthy to be followed, أَمَّا لَا يَهِدِّي إِلَّا أَنْ يُهْدَى, or the one who himself does not find guidance until he is guided? So why are you going to place in that position of absolute power, absolute authority, those that are utterly dependent, knowing and claiming belief in Allah? knowing Allah, yet not giving Him that position. Something, someone else has that position in your life to the exclusion of Allah. فَمَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ? What is wrong with you? What kind of judgment are you making? وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ إِلَّا ظَنًّا. Most of them follow nothing but assumptions. Here you have ayats, truth, an understanding of reality, which is the best explanation of the facts of experience as you know them. That's how Quran represents itself and Allah and Rasulullah and Akhirah. What is it that you have? What is your alternate? Is your alternate any more than assumptions? What basis in truth are you on? Inna dhanna la yughni min al-haqqi shay'a. Without a doubt, assumption cannot avail against the truth at all. How many explanations of truth will you find? How many claimants to truth will you find that are confidently sending you to verify their claims in as many disparate sources as you can possibly imagine? Where will you find a spiritually sourced truth or truth sourced in revelation, which is affirming itself to the material world? Inna Allah alimun bima yaf'alun. Allah knows whatever it is that they do. وَمَا كَانَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ. It was not possible for the Qur'an أن يفترى من دون الله, that it could have been produced by anyone other than Allah. وَلَكِنْ تَصْدِيقَ الَّذِي بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. Rather, it is a confirmation of all that is before it. وَتَفْصِيلَ الْكِتَابِ. And a detailed explanation of the scripture that came before it. Al-Kitab as this whole representative of institution of revelation that comes from Allah, and the Quran being of it, from it, and explaining it. La rayba fi. There is no doubt in it. Min Rabbil Alameen. It is from the Rabb of the worlds, of the Alameen. That a reflection on the Alameen and the perceptibility of the Rububiyyah of Allah there is going to, it lines up the God of the Bible, of previous scriptures, the God of the Alameen and the world outside, and whatever realms of reality you can experience, and the God of the Quran. They're all one. They're all one. Am yaquluna iftara. So do they say he invented it? Qul fa'tu bi surati mithli. Tell them, bring one surah like it. Bring one surah like it. وَادْعُوا مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And call whoever you can other than Allah in kuntum sadiqeen, if you should be truthful. Just one. You're so quick to jump to criticize. Oh, we reject it. Oh, we reject it. Oh, we reject it. Oh, this is what's wrong with it. This is what's wrong with it. It should have this. It should have that. Why does it have this? Why doesn't it have that? Okay, then whatever it is that whatever issues you have with the Quran or surahs of the Quran, that which you believe in, A, what source of knowledge is that coming from? B, if you bring that source of knowledge forward, how does that live up to whatever standards you're subjecting the Quran to? Usually, that standard or whatever that source is, there's going to be a claim that there is nothing, and that we don't believe in anything. And we know how shallow that claim is, that everyone has a theology, has an understanding of reality, has some level of belief. Those most resistant to accept that they do have the most dangerous kind. I don't even know what it is. And you don't want to be there. And whatever it is that's, if they do acknowledge, yes, there is a belief system that we have, great. Let's see what it's based in. And whatever it's based in, how is it so foolproof that the very criticisms that you're so quick to jump to against the Quran, do those standards, that you do your own standards, why don't they live up to those, do those criticisms not hold true against them? وَادْعُوا مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ. So call whoever you can other than Allah in kuntum صادقين, if you really are truthful in your claim. بَلْ كَذَّبُوا بِمَا لَمْ يُحِيطُوا بِعِلْمِهِ. Rather, they denied that whose knowledge they could not encompass. The adhab of Allah, they kept rejecting it. The revelation of the Quran, they kept rejecting it. وَلَمَّا يَأْتِهِمْ تَأْوِيلُهُ. And when its interpretation has not yet come to them, كَذَلِكَ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. That's how those before them denied. Them not being able to understand it, them not being able to come to terms with how its interpretation is going to come in due time. In their case, in the form of adhab of Allah. That's just how the people before them couldn't hold off. They had this claim of absolute knowledge that any progression in time would not in any way show how it's incomplete, inadequate, wrong. And they would just fixate themselves upon whatever it is that they'd claimed as eternal absolute truth. كذلك كذب الذين من قبلهم فانظر كيف كان عاقبة الظالمين. So look, what was the end of the people who did this dhulm, these oppressors? What was their consequence? How did they end up? They were holding on to the same logic as you. They had the same attitude as you. They had the same behavior as you. وَمِنْهُمْ مَن يُؤْمِنُ بِهِ. And some of them believe in it. وَمِنْهُمْ مَن لَا يُؤْمِنُ بِهِ. While others do not. وَرَبُّكَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُفْسِدِينَ. And your Rabb, Ya Rasulullah, is fully aware of these mufsideen, these corruptors. وَإِن كَذَّبُوكَ فَقُلْ لِي عَمَلِي وَلَكُمْ عَمَلُكُمْ. And if they continue to reject you, Ya Rasulullah, then tell them, for me is my action, and for you is yours. أَنْتُمْ بَرِيئُونَ مِمَّا أَعْمَلُ. You have nothing to do with what I do. You have such big problems with what I do. None of your business. Let me do what I have to do. You're not responsible for it. If it's all as wrong as you think it is, I'm going to have to answer for it. وَأَنَا بَرِيءٌ مِمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. And I got nothing to do with what you're doing. I stand clear. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَسْتَمِعُونَ إِلَيْكَ. And there are some who apparently listen to you. أَفَأَنْتَ تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ. But can you make the deaf hear? وَلَوْ كَانُوا لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Even they do not use their brains, their intellect, their reason, nothing. They listen, but whatever it is required to process what they're listening, to make sense of what they're listening, that's gone. I mean, if you come with preconceived conclusions, you're not listening. You're not going to think about what you hear. You're just looking to, okay, what else can I use to reject? What else can I use to Anything you would ever listen, yes, but that yes means nothing. What comes after the but is what you're really about. And that you carried into the room, into the conversation before you heard anything at all. And you blurted out the same, your pre-prepared speech. وَلَوْ كَانُوا لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. They're not going to think. Not going to use their ability to reason. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْكَ. And then there's the one who looks towards you, apparently. أَفَأَنْتَ تَهْدِي الْعُمْيَ. But can you show the way? Can you guide the one who is blind? وَلَوْ كَانُوا لَا يَبْصُرُونَ. If they're not going to see, they're not looking to see anything. They're looking, but they're not going to see. In Allah la yadhlimu an-nasa shay'a. Allah, without a doubt, is not going to be unjust to people. He is not unjust to people. وَلَكِنَّ النَّاسَ أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. Except people, they're unjust to themselves. They have these incredible faculties of being able to hear, of being able to see, like really see, of processing, of reasoning, and coming to a conclusion. You're not going to use it. Isn't that dhulm against your own faculties, abilities? وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ. And the day He will assemble them, كَأَلَّمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا سَاعَةً مِنَ النَّهَارِ. It will appear to them as if they stayed in this world an hour of the day. يَتَعَارَفُونَ بَيْنَهُمْ. Recognizing one another. قَدْ خَسِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِلِقَاءِ اللَّهِ. They will have lost themselves, those who denied the meeting with Allah. وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. And they were not guided. وَإِنْمَا نُرِيَنَّكَ بَعْضَ الَّذِي نَعِدُهُمْ. And whether we were to show you some of what we promised them, أَوْ نَتَوَفَّيَنَّكَ. Or we take you away in death, فَإِلَيْنَا مَرْجِعُهُمْ. They have to return to us anyway. ثُمَّ اللَّهُ شَهِيدٌ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ. And then Allah is a witness over what they do either way. Whether you remain with them, Ya Rasulullah, or we take you away, however this ends up, Allah is watching over them. He knows. وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ الرَّسُولُ. And there is a messenger for every community. فَإِذَا جَاءَ رَسُولُهُمْ. And so when their messenger comes, قُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ. It will be judged between them in justice. وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And no injustice is going to be done to them. وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And they say, when will this promise be fulfilled? Tell us if you really are true. قُلْ لَا أَمْلِكُ لِنَفْسِي ضَرًّا وَلَا نَفْعًا. Tell them, I have no control over any harm or benefit, even to myself, إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ. Except whatever Allah wills. لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ أَجَلٌ. There is a deadline for every community. For every community. إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهُمْ. And so when their deadline approaches, فَلَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ سَاعَةً وَلَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ. They're not going to be able to delay it for a moment, nor will they be able to advance it. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَتَاكُمْ عَذَابُهُ بَيَاتًا أَوْ نَهَارًا. Ask them, have you ever considered if this punishment were to hit you during night or even at daytime? مَاذَا يَسْتَعْجِلُ مِنْهُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. Which part of it would the criminals want to bring on, hasten? Which part of it are they really, do they want should come earlier? أَثُمَّ إِذَا مَا وَقَعَ آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ. Would you then believe in it when it actually happens? الْآن, now? وَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ بِهِ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. While all this time you've been asking to bring it on, bring it earlier. ثُمَّ قِيلَ لِلَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. Then the oppressors will be told, ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ الْخُلْدِ. Taste the eternal punishment. هل تجزون إلا بما كنتم تكسبون. Have you adequately been compensated for that which you used to do, which you used to earn? وَيَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ أَحَقٌّ هُوَ. And they ask you, is it really true? قُلْ, say, إِي وَرَبِّي إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ. Yes, by my Rabb, it is absolute truth. وَمَا أَنْتُمْ مُعْجِزِينَ. And you're not going to be able to escape. The conviction of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his bearing witness as a testimony to the truth of what is being brought and as establishing a case against the rejectors. وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ ظَلَمَتْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Even if every single individual that oppressed, possessed all that is on earth, لَفْتَدَتْ بِهِ. He would want to offer it as ransom. وَأَصَرُّوا النَّدَامَ, and they will feel remorse within themselves. لَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابَ, as soon as they see the punishment. وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُم بِالْقِسْطِ, and they will be judged in justice. وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, and they will not be oppressed. It is this aura of invincibility that they carry, that they think that they're just not going to die, that they're just not vulnerable in any way. And so they continue to do what they do. Ala inna lillahi ma fi samawati wal ard. Unquestionably, all that's in heavens and the earth belongs to Allah for sure. Ala inna wa'dallahi haqqun. And unquestionably, Allah's promise is true for sure. Walakin aktharahum la ya'lamun. But most people just don't know. Most of them have no idea. Huwa yuhyi wa yumitu wa ilayhi turja'un. He is the one who brings to life and puts to death, and towards him you will all be brought back. Ya ayyuhan nas, qad ja'atkum maw'izatun min rabbikum. People, a heart softening speech has come to you. This admonition from your Rabb, this Quran having come to you from the one who brings life from the dead. So you can just as well be barren, dead spiritually of heart. But if you give that chance, the Quran can bring your heart to life. It can bring your heart to life. The Rabb that brought you pretty much everything else that you see around yourself in the form of life, this is brought to you by the same Rabb. This is His kalam. وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. And it is a shifa, it is a cure for the diseases of the chest, of whatever it is that is inside of you. See, it is shifa, but if the heart is too hard, the shifa does not penetrate. There's a very strong barrier, walls that are put up in the heart that the shifa is not able to get in. So the Quran is also maw'idah. It is a means of softening the heart, taking down those walls, those barriers. So the shifa can actually penetrate. It brings you both. The Quran comes with this ability to lower these walls that have behind which your real self is hiding. Your spiritual potential is hiding. It brings you, it has that power, that penetration that can get right to you, to your spiritual core, and then heal that which is in there. وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. All these diseases. And it is interesting to look at this with, and whenever we do talk about Surah Nur and the ayat of Nur, and how the Quran and the spirituality of the person, the heart, the chest, how all of that gets put together. وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And a guidance and a mercy for the believers. So there's this natural tendency within a person to grow, to find to get to their destination on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. But then there's obstacles that come up in the path of that natural growth, walls that we put up. The Quran can transcend those walls, help lower those walls, bring them down. And so, whatever it is that is holding you back, It can help you take care of it so you can get on. You can start, you can know where you have to go. You can know where that potential leads you. You can know in the external world, what does it look like? Wa rahmah. And on top of that, it's a mercy. It is grace. It gives you so much more than just that. It is a facilitation along that journey as well. It is a forgiveness along that journey as well. That Allah does not just, I mean, you can, there's multiple ways of telling people how to get to a destination, what the way is, and how do you, follow the way, and what does it look like when you reach the end of the way. But it's a completely different guiding if it is done with an incredible amount of love. That there's a facilitation along the way as well. That the kindness with which it is done, the grace that you experience, the mistakes that you make, that every time you're getting off the path and getting back on and getting off the path and getting back on, and the rahmah stays with you. وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And it is a mercy, it is a grace for the believers. قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ. So say, for this fadl of Allah, this incredible bounty of Allah and His mercy, فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. So for that they should rejoice. For that, this is the cause for celebration. The Quran ought to be celebrated. In a lot of ways, Ramadan is a celebration of Quran. Laylatul Qadr is a celebration of Quran. فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. So this, they should rejoice. وَخَيْرٌ مِمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. It is better than all that they can accumulate. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُم مِّن رِزْقٍ. Have you seen whatever, say to them, Ya Rasulullah, have you seen whatever Allah has sent down for you from provision? فَجَعَلْتُم مِّنْهُ حَرَامًا وَحَلَالًا. You have made from it unlawful and lawful. قُلْ أَاللَّهُ أَذِنَ لَكُمْ. Ask them, has Allah permitted you to do that? What authority do you have to do that? Allah is giving you this authority in the form of the Quran, which does tell you based in ilm, and you're just on the basis of assumptions, arbitrarily, just some people, whatever they feel like doing. Am ala Allahi taftarun. Are you ascribing lies to Allah? وَمَا ظَنُّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And what do they think, those who ascribe all of these false things to Allah regarding the day of resurrection? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى النَّاسِ. For sure, Allah is full of grace for people. وَلَكِنْ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. But most of them are not grateful. Just a quick word on the ayah that we just read, ayah number 57. And how this ties in with what we read in Surah Baqarah and Surah Ali Imran with respect to the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and how it finds its fulfillment in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he recites the ayat of Allah, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. We look at those four functions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we look at how the Quran facilitates those avenues in a very similar way. The shifa that is mentioned here, and the tazkiyah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performs, it's important to consider, given what we have said from the get-go, that the people the Quran addresses are religious people. The idea that there can be irreligious religiosity, impious piety, unrighteous righteousness, this danger being there. If there is no shifa, if there is no tazkiyah, then it's not just a possibility, it is a probability that any level of guidance that you get from the Quran, that guidance may be used for all the wrong reasons, in all the wrong directions, for all the wrong ends, right? And it will not end up being a mercy for people, for humanity in any way. It will end up being um, injustice. So to have this very important aspect of the maw'izah that the Quran is and the shifa that the Quran is, and how both of those come together in the tazkiyah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performs and the tilawati ayat that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam does. And so when guidance comes after that, the kitab and the hikmah come after that, they're going to be genuinely fruitful. It's going to be genuine. That's genuine religiosity. That's the kind of religiosity you'd want um, scripture to provide you, human beings to manifest. That representation of God is going to bring goodness, truth, and beauty into the world. Um, you leave that out. You take those aspects for granted. You take your spiritual health for granted as being pristine, as being awesome, as being just this potential that has to be actualized. Then that's trouble. That's problematic. In any case, moving right along, وَمَا تَكُونُ فِي شَأْنٍ, and whatever affair you are engaged in, Ya Rasulullah, وَمَا تَتْلُو مِنْهُ مِنْ قُرْآنٍ, and whatever portion of the Quran you may be reciting, وَلَا تَعْمَلُونَ مِنْ عَمْلٍ, and whatever act you are doing, إِلَّا كُنَّا عَلَيْكُمْ شُهُودًا, except that we are witnessing over it. So again, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum by extension in Mecca, all of what they're doing and all the opposition that they're facing, all the difficulties that they're confronted with, these ayat coming in to keep them going, to hold them strong, to let them know that Allah is with them. If tufiduna fihi, when you are deeply involved in it, وَمَا يَعْزَبُ عَنْ رَبِّكَ, and not absent from your Rabb, مِن مِثْقَالِ ذَرَّةٍ, something as tiny as a particle, fil ardi wala fis sama, neither on earth nor in the heaven, wala asghara min dhalika wala akbar, neither smaller nor greater, illa fi kitabin mubin, except it is in a manifest book. Allah sees all of that and all of everything. Because it happens that when you're engaged in work for the sake of Allah and you don't see immediate results for any work, especially work for the sake of Allah, which is big work, you don't see immediate results. Rather, you may see distress, you may see difficulty, you may see opposition, internal, external, you name it, all going to come in. And in seeing that distress, it is but natural to feel very alone, to feel that it's not working, to feel that it's not going anywhere. And so, as natural as that feeling is, because feelings are triggered by environmental triggers, by immediate experiences, the consolation that comes in, the reminder that comes in, no, 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 you're not alone. Allah is watching everything. Everything counts. Your effort is not going to go to waste. Precisely this which looks to you to yield no result is in good time. You're going to see it returned to you. You're going to see the fruits of your labor. Even if right now you see the fruits being taken away from you and not sprouting up at all, Allah is engaged and involved with every single thing that you do. He's with you. Ala inna awliya Allah. And so, without a doubt, the friends of Allah, la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. There's no fear on them, and there's no, nor do they grieve. And why is this encouragement, why is this consolation necessary? Precisely because the khawf and the huzn, they become a real experience. They become a reality. And so it is in that midst that these ayat are most relevant. That don't worry, don't be afraid, don't be sad. I'm with you. I got your back. Keep going. I'm your friend and you're my friend. That's the consolation that's coming in. You did this for me. Don't think I'm going to let you go for it. لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. Those who believed and had taqwa. لهم البشرى في الحياة الدنيا. They will have glad tidings. There are glad tidings for them here in this world, وفي الآخرة, and in the hereafter. That there is no, this is not just an afterworld affair. This is not just an afterlife affair. There is fruits that you're going to see here. There is loss that you're going to experience here, and there's compensation that you're going to experience here. And so the fear that is a part of life, that when you're going to be traveling the journey, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ, we will test you something of fear with something of fear. And it's really faith at that point to do what you have to do despite the experience of fear. There's fear for physical safety, that you'll incur some harm to yourself physically, that there's physical dangers on the path. They were very real, very probable for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba. Less so for us in this day and age. Not completely gone, but definitely less. And they're less because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba faced the worst of them. It is their hard work and then hard work of generations after them that we don't have that physical insecurity, that fear of coming to a physical harm. And then, of course, there's fear at a psychological level, this uncertainty of what is going to, how is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? What if it doesn't happen? Of being betrayed, of being forsaken, of having to face oppositions, and criticisms, and God knows what else. It raises an apprehension, it raises a worry. The fear of being cut off, the fear of being isolated, the fear of losing friends, the fear of losing family, the fear of not having support. Those are all very real fears. And what you fear for yourself physically and what you fear for yourself psychologically, and then you experience that actually, will be a cause for grief when something of that fear actually does come true. You do experience harm, physical and psychological, and that would be a source of grief, grief that emanates from loss. But to be able to overcome this this fear and this grief felt as a reality, physically and psychologically, through a spiritual commitment, through trusting Allah, through having the taqwa of Allah, through believing in Allah, and persevering in action, therefore. Not that this, when fear manifests itself spiritually and becomes a persistent state, that's the problem. And what does it mean that it manifests itself spiritually and becomes persistent is when action, or how it is supposed to translate into sabr, sabr meaning perseverance, that goes away. You give up, you lose hope. The feeling of hopelessness is at a psychological level, that's natural. The believing in that feeling and being hopeless and therefore giving up, that's problematic. That's not problematic in instances that it takes place, because we know for a fact that within the spiritual dimension, the room for tawbah is very expansive. It's great. It's a necessary option. It is something that we will have to resort to. Rather, having to resort to it makes us all the more spiritually stronger. But when that is a persistent state, when that hopelessness is not a phase, it's not an episode, it is it is just what it is. And it's not looking to change. That's going to be problematic in the context of iman, in the context of taqwa. And that is going to manifest as having given up altogether, not doing anything, or not doing anything substantial. So the iman and the taqwa and the state of overcoming fear and grief spiritually, especially when you feel it very strongly, psychologically and physically. That's the greatness of the human being. That's the capacity that the human being has that makes us human. Because the feeling of fear and loss at a psychological level is incredibly overwhelming. It can be incredibly overbearing. But for a state of fear and loss or grief at a psychological level, it is also essentially, it cannot, it, as overwhelming, as intense as it can be, it can't be, it can't last forever. It decreases in intensity. It can't sustain itself unless it is accompanied by demonic beliefs that the hopelessness that the depression and anxiety make you feel, you believe it to be the truth. And then spiritual belief, spiritually demonic belief, that which emanates, which is going around in the sudur, in the chests, and therefore it does not allow for what is in the qalb, uh, the potential for iman, for hope. It doesn't allow for that to come out, the light. And that spiritually demonic belief, then that sustains the psychological state of grief and that psychological state of anxiety. And so the behavior, the conduct is altogether one of having given up, of having lost. of not doing sabr and shukr. And that's the problem. That's what has to be contended with. Of course, um, not to say that all kinds of depression and anxiety are just that and nothing else. That's not true. That is not true. They can be more persistent, more chronic, physical and psychological states of anxiety and depression as well. But nevertheless, there are spiritual resources that can be developed, that can be nurtured, that can be strengthened. So even those persistent and strong, overwhelming psychological and physical reasons or causes for that depression and anxiety can be addressed. Anyways, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ, those who believed and had taqwa. لَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. There is a glad tiding for them, both in this world and in the hereafter. How this hopefulness, this optimism that is inspired, which is not naive, it is not making any false promises of immediate gratification that boom, you recite this and all of a sudden all feelings of fear and grief are gone, disappeared as if they never were. No. For some people, maybe good for them. But generally, that's not, it's a commitment that is being made for a long term. It's a long haul. It's a marathon, a pretty long one. لا تبديل لكلمات الله. The words of Allah are not going to change. Are not going to change. We studied this in Surah Baqarah, that this really gets, the situation gets so overwhelmingly hopeless to the point that really the strongest of Iman, the question becomes a reality. When is the help of Allah coming? Mata Nasrullah. It is at that point that the help actually comes. We will see when we study Surah Hajj that Allah says straight out, if you can't hold on to this hope, then fine, let go of it. See how what good that gives you. See how that helps you out. It's like a person holding onto the rope, ascending to the heavens, and then thinks, I don't know if this rope is going to get me to the heavens. Okay, let go of the rope. See what good that brings you. It's that bad. It gets that daunting. It gets that intimidating. It gets that difficult. لا تبديل لكلمات الله. But the words of Allah are not going to change. And what are the words of Allah? That if the path is prophetic, if that is of Rasulullah, if it is of his Nusra, then there's there is success. It may take a long while in coming, it may be very distant. The light at the end of the tunnel, and the end of the tunnel is like not in sight. But that's what you have to believe in. It's like the dark clouds that cover the sky, and they cover it for so long that is there even a sun becomes a real question. And you don't have the sight of the sun to help answer the question. The best you can do is believe. No, 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 I've seen it. Somewhere in the past, or there's people that I trust who saw it, who experienced it. It is going to come. All that you have is that belief to keep you going. Maybe not at express speed, maybe not like 100 miles an hour, but nevertheless, little but consistent, slow but sure. Your spirituality as a human being and your connection with a source of a mature optimism, revelation, scripture, Quran, it gives you that. It lets you hold strong. This is how it's relevant in the long haul, in that marathon. لا تبديل لكلمات الله. Because like Uzair, when he goes around and he sees the death in the society, like how in the world is Allah going to revive this? It becomes a question. لا تبديل لكلمات الله. The words of Allah, the kalimat of Allah, they're meaningful. They're definitive. They will reach their end. And so just faith in those words when the world is telling you otherwise, it's what keeps you going. And then you become this source through whom those words become the world that you're living in, a better place. The kalimat of Allah, because you believed in them, you were able to bring them to life as goodness in the world, as truth in the world, as beauty in the world. That's your testimony. That's your shahada. That's how you bear witness to their truth. And if you're not going to do it, somebody else will. But it is going to happen. You not doing it may mean not too much goodness, the opposite of goodness, injustice, ugliness. That may prevail as far as your vicinity and your time is concerned, but somebody else is going to come along. And those kalimats of Allah, they're going to come true. ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. And that is the awesome achievement. That is the grand achievement. فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا and فِي الْآخِرَةِ, you see those fruits. وَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ قَوْلُهُم. So do not let their remarks, what they say, grieve you, Ya Rasulullah. And again, in the very next few surahs, we're going to see the Quran testifying, we know, Ya Rasulullah, that their remarks do grieve you. See, that's the problem with looking at this, looking at all of the ayat of the Quran with just this one lens of these commands that are coming that you have to obey. That says, do not be grieved. Oh my God, it's like a sin to grieve. Do not be afraid. Oh my God, it's like a sin to be afraid. Relax. Their exhortations, their encouragement, their consolations, there's reassurance. It's not God talking down to you, commanding you, commanding you, commanding you. Come on. You're not dealing with a Fir'aun. And when you say don't worry is an expression of, it's an expression of empathy, it's an expression of love, it's an expression of mercy, it's an expression of support. Why does it always have to be an expression of a command? Don't worry. Who does that? Who talks like that? What kind of a, and what kind of a conception, kind of an understanding of God, how degenerate does it have to be for us to just look at, to not be able to see anything more than that in the ayat? What kind of a Fir'aun do we imagine him to be? So don't let their remarks grieve you, Ya Rasulullah. Don't worry about them. Don't let it get to you. وَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ قَوْلُهُمْ. Whatever they're saying, don't worry about it. إِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. Power for sure belongs to Allah, all of it. هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. He's listening, He knows. أَلَا إِنَّ لِلَّهِ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. For sure, everyone in the heavens and everyone on earth belongs to Allah. وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ. And those who invoke, those who follow, and those others, those who call on others other than Allah, they follow nobody other than Their assumptions. إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. Other than their assumptions. This is your fabrications. This without any corresponding truth in reality, simply fabrications of their own mind. وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. And they do nothing but lie. Again, this incredible, amazing, miraculous ability for language that human beings possess that allow for us to relate with reality, understand it better, even create it. But then if this amazing ability is misused, and whatever it is that you're fabricating is against your experience in reality, it has nothing that corresponds to it in reality. But because your words are so strong in the impact that it can have in the world, ideas have consequences. Concepts have consequences. They have a bearing on the lives of people and how they act. And that act can be good or bad. It can be painful for people. So if whatever it is that you're coming up with is just assumptions, those assumptions are going to take the form of reality. They're going to have real-time consequences in the world. And if they're not based in truth, then they will result in injustice. If they are based in truth, then they will result in goodness. If they're not based in truth, they will result in ugliness. If they are based in truth, they will result in beauty. And if they correspond to external truth and you understand them as such, then when your will aligns itself with Allah's, your truth becomes a living reality in the world as well. Allah helps you do that. It's a it's an incredibly collaborative process. Allah is very honoring of the human being, provided what is coming from the human being is coming from the best place. هو الذي جعل لكم الليل لتسكنوا فيها. He is the one who's made the night for you so you can relax in it. وَالنَّهَارَ مُبْصِرًا. And the day giving sight. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ. And for sure there are signs in that for the people who listen. Is day and night part of the hayatul dunya, but very honored signs of Allah. قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. And they say Allah has begotten a son. Subhanah. He is exalted above that. هُوَ الْغَنِي. He is rich, he is independent. He doesn't need a son. The finitude of human beings requires for them to have progeny. Allah is not, Allah is Huwa al-Hayy. He is ever living. لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. To him belongs everything in the heavens and everything in the earth. إِنْ عِنْدَكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ بِهَذَا. Do you have any proof, any authority on the basis of what you're saying that? أَتَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Or do you say against Allah what you have no idea about, what you have no knowledge of? قُلْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبِ. Say, those who invent lies against Allah, لَا يُفْلِحُونَ. They're not going to succeed. مَتَاعٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا. Maybe a provision for them in this world. Maybe that brings you some good here. Temporary, immediate gains. Again, indicating that this fabrication is for some immediate benefit without having any correspondence to truth, without having any authority. Again, what we started the surah with, when you exalt God, his transcendence so much that he becomes absolutely irrelevant to what goes on in this world. And so injustice and evil can reign free, but then again, people's spiritual needs get the better of them, and they have to have some relationship with spirituality, with divinity. Boom, in come these assumptions, foundationless, baseless, as far as real knowledge is concerned, and they look to fill in the gaps. And those gaps that are filled in, whether with idols or with children of God, those gaps, they fulfill those spiritual religious needs somewhat, but the overall free reign of evil is left untouched. And so it gets even worse. Now the spiritual potential is in the service of that evil. ثم إلينا مرجعهم, then their return is to us alone. ثم نذيقهم العذاب الشديد, and then we will make them taste the severe punishment بما كانوا يكفرون, as they used to deny. واتلو عليهم نبأ نوح, so recite to them the story of Nuh alayhi salam. إذ قال لقومه يا قوم, when he said to his people, my people, إن كان كبر عليكم مقامي وتذكيري بآيات الله, if my stance and my reminder through the ayat of Allah is burdensome upon you, فعلى الله توكلت, I have put my trust entirely on Allah. فَأَجْمِعُوا أَمْرَكُمْ وَشُرَكَاءَكُمْ, so do whatever you can, bring it all together, your plan, your helpers, associates other than Allah. ثُمَّ لَا يَكُنْ أَمْرُكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ غُمَّةً, and do not let your plan be obscured to you. Be very firm in your plan. Don't be indecisive. Don't be unclear in what you want to do to me. ثُمَّ قُضُوا إِلَيَّ, then do what you gotta. Execute that plan against me. وَلَا تُنْظِرُونَ, and do not give me any chance. فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ, if you turn away, I got nothing to lose. I don't. Again, the hurt of Nuh alayhi salam with respect to his people and how it manifests itself. The challenge that he's throwing out to them: do what you can, bring your best possible plan, resources, put everything together, and let me have it. Give me the best shot you got. But remember, فَمَا سَأَلْتُكُم مِّنْ أَجْرٍ, I never asked you for a reward. I'm not a storyteller. I'm not doing this for myself in any way. In ajriya illa Allah. My reward is entirely on Allah. وَأُمِرْتُ أَنْ أَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and I've been commanded to be of those who submit. فَكَذَّبُوهُ, but they denied him. فَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَمَن مَّعَهُ فِي الْفُلْكِ, so we saved him and those with him in the ship. وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ خَلَائِفَ, and we made them successors on earth. وَأَغْرَقْنَا الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, and we drowned those who denied our ayat. فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُنذَرِينَ, so see how was the end of those who were warned. Now that they've been warned, now the adhab is justified against them, adequately warned. ثُمَّ بَعَثْنَا مِن بَعْدِهِ رُسُلًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ, then we sent after him messengers to their people. فَجَاءُوهُم بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, they came to them with clear signs. فَمَا كَانُوا لِيُؤْمِنُوا بِمَا كَذَّبُوا بِهِ مِن قَبْلُ, but they were not to believe in that which they were already denying. They went on holding on to the fixity of whatever it is that they had and didn't budge. Nothing of what the prophets brought to them led them, they didn't, I mean, necessarily when the prophets come, when ayat come, and your previous understanding of reality or dunya or life or yourself or whatever you're holding on to, ayat challenge that understanding. Prophets challenge that understanding. They lead for you to doubt your previous beliefs. If you don't take those doubts seriously, you're not going to open yourself up to the ayat that are coming in front of you. You deny them altogether and persist in whatever you were holding on to before. Do not allow for those beliefs to mature. And so they weren't going to believe in what they had been rejecting from before. كَذَلِكَ نَطْبَعُ عَلَى قُلُوبِ الْمُعْتَدِينَ, and that is how we seal the hearts to those who exceed limits. Now their actions, as they were carrying them out, their transgressions, and their transgressions were showing them the shortcomings in their prior beliefs. They weren't taking that seriously. The ayats and the prophets made it explicit. They still continue to not take it seriously. ثم بعثنا من بعدهم موسى وهارون إلى فرعون وملئه بآياتنا. And then after them we sent Musa and Harun towards Fir'aun and his chiefs with our ayat. So what we saw in A'raf as the entire series of prophets from Rusul, I mean, from Nuh alayhi salam all the way to Musa alayhi salam, and with all of them covered in between, three pre-Abrahamic, three post-Abrahamic. We don't find the middle ones mentioned, but we find the first one and the last one of the six mentioned, Nuh alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam being the critical center, the middle of this line of six prophets that we saw mentioned. Now, of course, there's Isa alayhi salam as well after Musa alayhi salam, but there is a difference in his particular role than these six. And we will see how. And then, of course, there's other prophets that are also relevant, of whom Yunus alayhi salam is going to be mentioned in a bit. But what we saw in A'raf, we see just the first and the last of those prophets being mentioned here. فَمَا بَعَثْنَا مِن بَعْدِهِمْ مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ إِلَى فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَئِهِ بِآيَاتِنَا فَاسْتَكْبَرُوا. But they were arrogant. وَكَانُوا قَوْمًا مُجْرِمِينَ. As they were criminals. Their jurm leads to this istikbar. What is this istikbar? Not taking the ayat of Allah seriously. What does that reflect? Exaltation of your own self to this place of greatness where you can't learn anything, can't be taught anything, don't have to reflect upon the shortcomings. Shortcomings are weaknesses that great people don't have, and they're great people. This greatness and this narcissism, that is their istikbar. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ عِنْدِنَا. So when the truth from us came to them, قَالُوا إِنَّ هَذَا لَسِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. They said, this is definitely a clear magic. قَالَ مُوسَى. Musa said, أَتَقُولُونَ لِلْحَقِّ لَمَّا جَاءَكُمْ أَسِحْرٌ هَذَا. Are you going to say, when truth has come to you, that this is magic? وَلَا يُفْلِحُ السَّاحِرُونَ. Magicians do not succeed. They're never going to succeed. قالوا وجئتنا. They said, have you come to us لتلفتنا عما وجدنا عليه آباءنا? Are you going to come, or have you come to us to turn us away from what we found our forefathers doing? وَتَكُونَ لَكُمَ الْكِبْرِيَاءُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. You want to have supremacy on the land. وَمَا نَحْنُ لَكُمَا بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. And we're not going to believe in you at all. قال فرعون ائتوني بكل ساحر عليم. And Fir'aun said, bring to me every skillful magician. فلما جاء السحرة. And so when the magicians came, قال لهم موسى. Musa said to them, ألقوا ما أنتم ملقون. Throw whatever you have to throw. فلما ألقوا. And when they threw, قال موسى. Musa said, ما جئتم به السحر. What you've brought is just magic. إن الله سيبطله. For sure Allah will expose its worthlessness, how batil it is. إن الله لا يصلح عمل المفسدين. And Allah does not allow the practice of those who are corrupt to be reformed. وَيُحِقُّ اللَّهُ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. And Allah will establish the truth. He will vindicate the truth by His kalimat. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. Even if the criminals detest it. What these stories mean to Rasulullah ﷺ and Sahaba at that time in Mecca, this triumph of Nuh alayhi salam, of Musa alayhi salam, what this reminds them of, that apparently nothing is going your way. Everything, there's like an impasse. Rather, the support that you have had seems to be receding. The death of Abu Talib, of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and whatever believers are coming in, they're trickling in. Those grand conversions out of Hamza and Umar, they happened a few years ago. And so for him to hear these ayat of the success of Musa alayhi salam, of the success of Nuh alayhi salam, success in the sense that they were saved and those opposing them were destroyed. What it means to him and the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. So Allah's truth will be established, even if these mujrimun detest it. فَمَا آمَنَ لِمُوسَى إِلَّا ذُرِّيَّةٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ. So nobody believed in Musa except some of the young people from his nation, from the Bani Israel. عَلَىٰ خَوْفٍ مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَئِهِمْ. Despite the fear of Fir'aun and their own chiefs. The khawf was there, the threat was real. It's as real as Fir'aun, as much of a dictator as you can possibly imagine. And the threat is for your life. They've seen the magicians being, whatever happened to the magicians, crucifixion and having your arms and feet from opposing sides cut off. Yet those young people from Bani Israel said, we're in, Ya Musa. So despite the fear and yaftinahum that they will persecute them, وَإِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ لَعَالٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ, and for sure Fir'aun was strong, was mighty in the land, وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ, and he was of those who transgress all boundaries. وَقَالَ مُوسَى يَا قَوْمِ إِن كُنتُمْ آمَنْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ, and Musa said, my people, if you really believe in Allah, فَعَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلُوا, then depend upon him. إِن كُنتُمْ مُسْلِمِينَ, if you really are Muslim. فَقَالُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا, they replied, we put our trust in Allah alone. رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ, our Rabb, do not make us a trial for the oppressing people. Now that we have publicly claimed that we believe in Allah, now that we have publicly claimed that we are with the Prophet of Allah, our conduct is going to be used to judge the veracity of the truth that we claim. So, what does believing in this truth do to a person's character, conduct, behavior? What do they become? The more you falter, the more you deviate, the more immoral a believer is, that becomes a fitna for the rest of humanity. Look at these people. They claim to believe in God. They claim to be monotheists. They claim to believe in prophets. They claim to believe in the hereafter. And they say you believe in all of this and you're going to become better people and the world is going to become a better place and it's going to become better and that's going to become better. And look at them. They got nothing of that better. They're no better than us. In fact, there are so many ways in which they are worse than us. So the people, the young people from Bani Israel, knew this, very fully realized this vulnerability, and expressed it in front of Allah and said, Ya Allah, do not make us a fitna for these unjust people. وَنَجِّنَا بِرَحْمَتِكَ, and save us through your mercy. مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ, from these disbelieving people. وَوَحِينَا إِلَى مُوسَى وَأَخِيهِ, and we revealed to Musa and his brother, أَن تَبَوَّأَ لِقَوْمِكُمَا بِمِصْرَ بُيُوتًا, provide your people dwellings in Egypt, وَجَعَلُوا بُيُوتَكُمْ قِبْلَةً, and make your houses facing the Qibla. So they're living in Egypt. That's where Fir'aun is ruling over them. They have to get out of there. Rasulullah Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam are required to organize their people. And part of that is to face their houses that they've taken facing the Qibla. Again, the Qibla being a direction for them, to orient them, that Abrahamic orientation, that Tawheed, that is the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that brings them together facing one direction. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, establish prayer. وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and give good tidings to the believers. وَقَالَ Musa, Musa said, رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ أَتَيْتَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَأَهُ, Musa said, our Rabb, you've given Fir'aun and his chiefs, you've given them so much, they have power, they have wealth. زِينَةً وَأَمْوَالًا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, splendor and wealth and life of this world. رَبَّنَا لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ, our Rabb, so they're misleading people from your way. That's why you gave them all of this. This is Musa alayhi salam, this is Allahumma ilayka ashku. I complain to you, Allah. They got so much. Well, we see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba feeling very, very acutely a reality of their time towards the end of Makkah. These people are so strong. These people have so much wealth. These people have so much power. What he felt in Ta'if, what he expressed in that dua after Ta'if. We see Musa alayhi salam reflecting something along those lines. Ya Allah, you've given them so much that they mislead people from your path. رَبَّنَا لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ رَبَّنَا اطْمِسْ عَلَى أَمْوَالِهِمْ وَاشْدُدْ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. Our Rabb, destroy their riches and harden their hearts. فَلَا يُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى يَرَوُا الْعَذَابَ الْأَلِيمِ. So they never come to believe until and unless they see the punishment itself, the painful punishment. قَالَ قَدْ أُجِيبَتْ دَعْوَتُكُمَا. Again, the hurt of Musa alayhi salam, the grief of Musa alayhi salam. But he doesn't want them to believe. He's like, enough is enough. They're not getting through. That's not fair. If Firaun believes and I believe, no, not after this point. And Allah agrees. Allah says, okay, that's fine. He's not going to believe. Allah said, your prayer has been accepted. Your prayer has been accepted. فَاسْتَقِيمَا وَلَا تَتَّبِعَانِ سَبِيلَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So be firm and do not follow the path of those who know nothing. وَجَاوَزْنَا بِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْبَحْرَ. And we led Bani Israel across the sea. فَأَتْبَعَهُمْ فِرْعَوْنُ وَجُنُودُهُ بَغْيًا وَعَدْوًا. And Fir'aun and his soldiers pursued them in their tyranny and their animosity. حَتَّى إِذَا أَدْرَكَهُ الْغَرَقُ. Until drowning overtook them. قال آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل. And so they cried out, I believe that there is no God except the one whom the Bani Israel believe in. وأنا من المسلمين. I am of the Muslims. How utterly humiliating. This person who went on in his entire life enslaving, denigrating, killing off Bani Israel, treating them as nothing better than cattle. Just before he passes, he didn't just pass away. He was tortured and drowned, painfully brought to an end. Just before that happens, the last words that come from his tongue is his acceptance of Bani Israel. Al-an waqad asayta qabl. And they're unacceptable. What? Now you believe? Before that, you were disobedient. وَكُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. And you were of those ones who did fasad, the corruption that you caused. فَالْيَوْمْ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ. We will preserve you in body. لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. So that you become a sign for those after you. A sign of what? A sign of no matter how much pomp, glory, power, wealth that you have, what remains of you, as mummified as it may be, is a corpse. A humiliated corpse. The adhab that, again, consistent with the theme of the surah. What is the contention of the people Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is engaging with in Mecca? And behind that, all their arguments and demands and this and that and religious creed and dogma and beliefs that they have and the demands they're making of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, behind all of that, what does Allah say it is? They just don't want to meet us. They just love this mata'il hayati dunya. And so Allah shows us as a sign in Fir'aun and his preserved, mummified version that this is the reality of it. It doesn't last. It comes to an end. And if you don't make it count when you are at the pinnacle of that power, and when you're just about to lose everything, acknowledging, professing faith, Allah doesn't want that. It doesn't make a difference. وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ عَنْ آيَاتِنَا لَغَافِلُونَ. And for sure, most of the people are definitely heedless of our ayat. وَلَقَدْ بَوَّأْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ مُبَوَّأَ صِدْقٍ. And we did settle Bani Israel in a good settlement. وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. And we provided them from good things. Again, a prophecy for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba. You're not going to remain in this state forever. You're going to have a settlement. You're going to get out of here. You're going to be in a place where you're more secure. You have provisions. فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا حَتَّى جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ. But they did not differ. The ikhtilaf did not come in them until after knowledge had come. إِنَّ رَبَّكَ يَقْضِي بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And for sure, your Rabb will judge among them on the day of resurrection. Ikhtilaf comes after knowledge comes. Knowledge comes with this baggage. Some people are going to believe in it, others will not. And that is going to be the distinction. فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون. Allah is going to decide between them concerning all that they used to differ in. فإن كنت في شك مما أنزلنا إليك. And if you are in doubt concerning whatever we have revealed to you, فاسأل الذين يقرؤون الكتاب من قبلك. So then ask those who have been reading scripture before you. Again, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the singular is being addressed. Ya Rasulullah, if there's any doubt about what we're revealing to you, which source do you affirm this from? Go to the Bible. Go to the Torah, go to the Injil. Ask those people who are authorities in reading the scripture. Those who recite the scripture from before you. That this is the truth that has come to you from your Rabb. So do not ever be of those who are in doubt. So you have so many resources outside of the scripture itself that affirm to its truth, from which your doubts can be addressed. So what reason do you have to persist in those doubts? وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ. And do not be of those who deny our ayat, فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, lest you become of those who are losers. Again, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam already knows this. This has been revealed to him so many times within the Quran itself. But it's become all the more relevant now because the Bani Israel settled in Medina, which is going to be Medina. They're going to be in contact more and more. And because at that time, in that state, in Mecca, all the reassurance, all the reminder that is necessary is being given. وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ. Never ever be of those who deny our ayat. فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ حَقَّتْ عَلَيْهِمْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ. And for those, for sure, those against whom the word, the decision, the decree of your Rabb has come into effect, لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. They're not going to believe. Just like Fir'aun, his belief did him no good at the moment the adhab was in front of him. Just like that, there's some people in Makkah, the decision has been made for them. No point. And they're not going to believe. Their heart are sealed. Their hearts are sealed. وَلَوْ جَاءَتْهُمْ كُلُّ آيَةٍ. Even if every single sign comes to them, حَتَّى يَرَوُا الْعَذَابَ الْأَلِيمَ, until they see the painful punishment with their own eyes. Then they might. That's no good. فَلَوْلَا كَانَتْ قَرْيَةٌ آمَنَتْ فَنَفَعَهَا إِيمَانُهَا. There has not been a single city that believed after seeing the signs of punishment and its iman actually benefited it, إِلَّا قَوْمَ Yunus, except the people of Yunus. So now why will that be? Fir'aun wasn't given that privilege, that chance, that his iman was accepted of them. It seems like the Quraysh are not going to be given that either. Why did people of Yunus get it? لَمَّا آمَنُوا كَشَفْنَا عَنْهُمْ عَذَابَ الْخِزْيِ. When they believed, we did draw off the punishment, the humiliating punishment from them. فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, and the life of this world. وَمَتَّعْنَاهُمْ إِلَى حِينٍ. And we gave them more time. We gave them more of a chance. Their deadline was extended. It was. وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ. Had your Rabb willed, لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Everyone on earth would have believed altogether. أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسِ. So are you going to compel people حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ, until they turn to be believers? Again, Yunus alayhi salam is alluded to, but the details are left for future surahs, for others, in terms of how they're organized within the Mus'haf. And course, they have been revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before. Yunus alayhi salam left early. Yunus alayhi salam, we saw Musa alayhi salam's dua and Allah's response to the dua, telling Musa, okay, we've accepted your dua. What does that mean? Now you can go. Now you can go. We know for a fact that when permission was granted, that the Sahaba did not migrate until permission was granted. We will see in Surah Nahl the, the ayat that represent that permission is being granted. But even then, Rasulullah did not leave. Rasulullah left as permission is granted in Surah Bani Israel, in Surah Al-Isra. That was his permission in the form of a dua. How beautiful. And that's when he felt confident, okay, now I can leave. Now it's not premature. Now the case has been settled against the people of Makkah. I don't have any responsibility. Yunus alayhi salam, he left early. So the people were given an exemption on account of the Prophet. And the Prophet had to spend that time in the belly of the whale. It is not possible for anyone to believe except by the permission of Allah. And Allah casts filth on those who do not use their reason. Look at that. Look at that. For an entire segment of our population and even scholarly population, looking to reason condescendingly, looking towards any use of intellect, logic, and all of that as if something so hideous, so hideous. See the exact opposite. That those who don't use their aql, that's hideousness, that's filth. وَيَجْعَلُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Allah casts filth on those who do not use their reason. وَلِنْظُرُوا مَاذَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Say, look what is in the heavens and the earth. وَمَا تُغْنِ الْآيَاتُ وَالنُّذُرُ عَنْ قَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. But the ayat and the warnings are not going to benefit the people who are not inclined to believe. فَهَلْ يَنْتَظِرُونَ إِلَّا مِثْلَ أَيَّامِ الَّذِينَ خَلَوْا مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. So are they just waiting for something similar to the days of those who passed away before them? قُلْ فَانْتَظِرُوا. Tell them, then they can wait. إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ. I will surely wait with you. ثم ننجي رسلنا والذين آمنوا كذلك. Then we saved our messenger and those who believe in the same manner. حقا علينا ننجي المؤمنين. Rescuing the believers is a due upon us. We've obligated upon ourselves that we're going to rescue mu'mineen. We're going to save the mu'mineen. And it's very interesting that the surah is called Surah Yunus, and Yunus alayhi salam is barely alluded to as a part of an ayah. That's it. And so what we've been starting our conversation about this surah as to how, with respect to the global responsibility of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the importance of a messenger, or the ayats to be explicitly portrayed, undeniably so, before the people, before the adhab is justified against them, in front of the people before the adhab is justified against them. And the hikmah of the Quran, particularly relevant in this day and age, and the example of Yunus alayhi salam as to what happens when you don't do your job fully. And of course, Yunus alayhi salam is as close to an example as you can get, of course, because prophets, their standards were high. As far as we're concerned, as the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our performance doesn't even come close to how much Yunus alayhi salam had struggled, how far he had gotten. That the signs of adhab were nigh. They were actually there. The adhab was nigh. But still, it was give or take a few days, and that was held against him. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ, say people, إِن كُنْتُمْ فِي شَكٍّ مِّن دِينِي, if you are in doubt about my deen, or what my life is, of what my conduct in life is supposed to be like, of what my beliefs are, فَلَا أَعْبُدُ الَّذِينَ تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. I don't worship those which you worship besides Allah. ولكن أعبد الله الذي يتوفاكم. But I worship Allah, the one who is going to capture you in death. وأمرت أن أكون من المؤمنين. And I have been commanded to be of the believers. وأن أقم وجهك للدين حنيفا. And I have been commanded to direct yourself resolutely for the deen with full dedication. For this ibadah of Allah, dedicate yourself, commit yourself for it sincerely. ولا تكونن من المشركين, and do not be of those who do shirk. ولا تدع من دون الله, and do not call on anyone other than Allah. ما لا ينفعك ولا يضرك, which can neither benefit nor harm you. فإن فعلت فإنك إذا من الظالمين. For if you do that, you will be of the ظالمين, of those who are unjust. وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ. And if Allah afflicts you with a calamity, there is no one who can remove it except Him. وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ. And if He intends for you good, there is no one who can withhold His fadl from you. يصيب به من يشاء من عباده. He brings it to whoever of His ibad He wills. Whoever of His ibad He wants to. وهو الغفور الرحيم, and He is extremely forgiving, ever merciful. قل يا أيها الناس, say people. And again, we see in Surah A'raf, when all the prophets were mentioned, يا أيها الناس. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam's global relevance, or his being a messenger for all people, for all times, it was highlighted as Ya ayyuhan nas. قَدْ جَاءَكُمُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ. And so it's being done over here as well. The truth has come to you from your Rabb. فَمَنِ اهْتَدَى فَإِنَّمَا يَهْتَدِي لِنَفْسِهِ. Whoever is guided, for sure he's guided for his own self. وَمَنْ ضَلَّ, and whoever goes astray, فَإِنَّمَا يُضِلُّ عَلَيْهَا. He will go astray only against himself. It has been made clear with these ayats. Rasulullah, these are like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's concluding address to the people of Quraysh. This is bye-bye. I'm leaving. My train is coming pretty soon, anytime now. Now, if you're not listening, it's all on you. I've done my job. وَمَا أَنَا عَلَيْكُمْ بِوَكِيلٍ. I'm not a manager over you. I'm not responsible for you. You believe, you don't believe, you act, you don't, not my business anymore. وَاتَّبِعْ مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْكَ. So, Ya Rasulullah, follow what is revealed to you. وَاصْبِرْ, and be patient. Keep going. Keep going. حَتَّى يَحْكُمَ اللَّهُ, until Allah judges, until Allah decides. وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الْحَاكِمِينَ, and He is the best of the judges. We continue with Surah Hud. Slightly shorter surah as compared to Surah Yunus, ever so slightly shorter, but nevertheless, the mirror imaging that we saw in Surah Anfal and A'raf, we will see with Yunus and Hud, as we said so before. Towards the end of Yunus, with the Amba'ur Rusul, started briefly, not in a lot of detail. Predominantly, the surah dealt with the other themes that Meccan surahs talk about, particularly those towards the end of the Meccan period. And now Hud complements that with carrying some of those themes forward, yes, but also more detail on the Amba'ur Rusul. Okay, so moving right along. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alif Lam Ra, Kitabun Uhkimat Ayatuhu. This is a book whose ayat are made muhkam. Muhkam in the sense of being very concise, but very rife with meaning, very packed with depth. ثم فصلت من لدن حكيم خبير, and then they are explained from the one who is wise and aware. The hikmah of Allah, as it reflects in the ayat, the knowledge of Allah, the awareness of Allah, how He is deeply concerned and related with what goes on with people in this world, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba, and their opposition that they're facing. The more muhkam ayats we see revealed earlier to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the very beginning of Mecca. Uh, the earliest part of the Quran, which we find towards the very end of the Quran as the 29th and the 30th juz, actually 28th, 29th, 30th, but a lot of 28 is Madani. In any case, the Meccan surahs that come towards the very end, Surah Qaf all the way to Surah Nas, those Meccan surahs are power packed, shorter ayat, very muhkam, and then we find their elaboration, more detail, the tafsil in the longer Meccan surahs, as Surah Hud being one of them, and then the more longer Madani surahs. All of this reflecting the hikmah of Allah and Allah being Khabir. Allah ta'budu illallah. What is the gist of that message? What is the muhkam aspect that you need to be very clear on? That Allah, there is no one worthy of worship that to take as your ma'bud, to become ibad of other than Allah. That's the muhkam uh, categorical declaration that you hold on to. Right? And then its elaborations. What does that entail? What does that mean? You find the explanation of that. إِنَّنِي لَكُم مِّنْهُ نَذِيرٌ وَبَشِيرٌ. Another muhkam ayah, or another muhkam aspect of the Quran that keeps repeating itself, that Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as Nadhir and Bashir, who comes from Allah towards humanity as a warner and a bringer of glad tidings. وَأَنَ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ. And that you seek forgiveness from your Rabb, that you do istighfar before your Rabb, ثُمَّ تُوبُوا إِلَيْهِ, and that you turn towards him repentant. So you do istighfar, you ask for his forgiveness, and then you turn towards him as well, that you practically reform. That istighfar or tawbah, there are steps, there are phases in it. An acknowledgement of what has been done wrong or what needs to be improved, and then actually making up for it, removing that from your conduct or adding that to your conduct, whatever the tawbah entails. يُمَتِّعْكُمْ مَتَاءً حَسَنًا. He will give you a good provision, إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى, till a specified period. Not just a good provision, a beautiful provision, but to a specified period. Ultimately, you're going to die. Ultimately, time's going to be up. And that urgency means that that beautiful provision that you're given, make the most of it. وَيُؤْتِ كُلَّ ذِي فَضْلٍ فَضْلًا. And he will grant his favor to everyone who deserves it. Whoever is the one to whom the fadl should be given. وَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ كَبِيرٍ. And if you turn away, I fear the punishment of a great day to be given to you. إِلَى اللَّهِ مَرْجِعُكُمْ. Towards Allah is your ultimate return. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. And he is able to do everything. So, Tawheed, prophethood, and Iman and Akhirah, resurrection, facing the consequences of your action. All three of them brought together in a very muhkam way and then elaborated. أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ يَثْنُونَ صُدُورَهُمْ. So unquestionably, now they fold up their chests, لِيَسْتَخْفُوا مِنْهُ, in order to hide from him. أَلَا حِينَ يَسْتَغْشُونَ ثِيَابَهُمْ. And for sure, even when they cover themselves with their garments, يَعْلَمُ مَا يُسِرُّونَ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ. He knows what they conceal and what they reveal. إِنَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. And for sure, he is knowing even of the innermost, most secrets of the chest. So there is that which you consciously reveal and that which you consciously conceal. And then there is that which is unconscious even to you. You don't even know what's going on inside of you, but it's inside of you. So the secrets of the chest of the human being, of that, of course, meaning what is in the depth of the human being. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And there is no moving creature on earth, إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. But upon Allah is its provision. So the one who knows all of these various dimensions of knowledge, revealed, concealed, unconscious. He's taking care of every creature on earth. وَيَعْلَمُ مُسْتَقَرَّهَا وَمُسْتَوْدَعَهَا. He knows its living and its resting place. He knows where it's going to live. He knows where it's going to rest. He knows where it's going to be incubated. And he knows where it's going to live and die. كل في كتاب مبين. Everything is in a clear book. وهو الذي, for it to be in a book, as to how it, the regularities that it depicts, and those regularities reflecting the knowledge of Allah, the sunnah of Allah, like you would find, and that is a divine document. وهو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض. And he's the one who created the heavens and the earth. في ستة أيام, in 6 days. وكان عرشه على الماء, and his throne was on water. ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن أملا. Why did he do all of this? So that he gives you these opportunities to see which of you is most beautiful in action, to see which of you rise up to the challenge and show that they're capable of, he knows you're capable. He put that capability in you to see which of you actually bring it forth in the most beautiful way. وَلَئِنْ قُلْتَ إِنَّكُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ مِنْ بَعْدِ الْمَوْتِ. And if you tell them, Ya Rasulullah, you're going to be resurrected after death. لَيَقُولَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. The disbelievers would say, إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا سِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. This is nothing but clear magic. He's coming us here, reminding us of our death, of there being consequences after death. No, 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 no. This is magic. They don't want to talk about death. They don't want to talk about what comes after death. They don't want to talk about that accountability, that responsibility. Too much. You don't. We've put that death anxiety to rest in so many different ways, in so many different defenses that we've propped up, so many different distractions that we have in our lives. Don't bring that issue up with us. And when you bring it up in a way that it has to be taken seriously, it is so profound. No, 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 no. We have to challenge that profundity by making it come off as magic. وَلَئِنْ أَخَّرْنَا عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابِ. And even if we delay the punishment from them, إِلَى أُمَّةٍ مَعْدُودَةٍ, for a limited time, لَيَقُولُنَّ مَا يَحْبِسُ. Then they're going to see what prevents it. What's holding your adhab back from us now? أَلَا يَوْمَ يَأْتِيهِمْ. For sure, the day when it comes to them, لَيْثَ مَصْرُوفًا عَنْهُمْ. It's not going to be averted from them. It's not going to be turned away from them. وَحَاقَ بِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. And it will envelop, they will be enveloped by that which they used to ridicule. Exactly that which they used to make fun of is going to surround them. It is going to envelop them. The azab of Allah, in their case, it was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba. Literally, the people that they made the most fun of besieged them, enveloped them, took over. وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنَّا رَحْمَةً. And definitely when we allow a human being to taste of our mercy, ثُمَّ نَزَعْنَا مِنْهُ. And then we withdraw it from him, إِنَّهُ لَيَئُوسٌ كَفُورٌ. For sure, he becomes despairing and ungrateful, hopeless and ungrateful. وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ النَّعْمَاءَ بَعْدَ ضَرَّاءَ مَسَتْهُ. And if we let him taste a favor after distress has afflicted him, لَيَقُولَنَّ ذَهَبَ السَّيِّئَاتُ عَنِّي. He says, all evil has moved away from me, has disappeared. Everything is awesome now. Either of those states were temporary. But your instinctive, these gut reactions, reflective of this impatience within you, that is natural, yes, but something that you have to overcome, something that you have to grow out of. How long are you going to continue to live at that lower brain level, at that limbic level? You're human. And it is precisely on account of being human that you shouldn't be passing such absolute judgments on reality based on cross-sectional experiences. good and evil, that of suffering and that of privilege or that of affluence. Either way, recognize it's not gonna last. It is not gonna last. Do not think in your times of affluence that there is nothing of suffering in this world, that you've gotten it, you've achieved it. It is inevitable. You will have to suffer. It is as much of a reality as anything else. You make your peace with it, that it's going to happen. Otherwise, just denying it, fighting it, is going to make it worse. When all he's like, all problems have gone, and he's jubilant, boasting, so proud of himself for having gotten rid of all of his problems. Except those who are steadfast, patiently perseverant, constant in their action, and perform righteous deeds, their a'mal, their good. أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَأَجْرٌ كَبِيرٌ. These are the people for whom there will be forgiveness and a great reward. What does sabr depict? What does amal salih depict? That these are human beings. They're not reactive creatures. They're not stimulus response creatures. They don't make these. So for in times of difficulty, the sabr indicates that this person recognizes that what matters most is how I conduct myself, how I carry myself. What is it that I'm able to achieve? What is it that I'm able to actualize? What is it that is emanating from me in the form of goodness? What is it that I can possibly do? Sabr depicts his recognition that even in times of suffering, there is there's responsibility. Less perhaps, but responsibility nevertheless. Maybe all the responsibility that is there is to endure with a dignity. Maybe that's all of what you can do. And how even that is so appreciated. Even that is so impactful. But nevertheless, the sabr that depicts that a human being can look at a reality greater than what his immediate perception or experience is telling him, that this is all there is. And that is the limbic reality, limbic system of the brain, lower brain. It has this tendency of telling you this is all there is. It's very overwhelming. It's very strong. And it has to do that because survival depends on that those absolute notions. But then if that's a persistent state, if you're never able to see beyond that, if as a human being you're not able to reflect in time past and in time future, this wonderful capacity that you have, and therefore resolve on being perseverant, tolerant, and keep going, then you're not human if you can't do that. The capacity to do that and therefore do good. And when you have affluence, to continue to do to, with that sabr and with that amal in affluence, knowing that this comes with a responsibility. Don't be boastful of, oh, look at me and how awesome I've been and how much I've brought, how much good that I've brought in my own life. It's so much about me, and not what is a responsibility that I owe as a result of what I have. Again, looking at that state or that time of privilege to be absolute, to be eternal, as if it's never going to end. فَلَعَلَّكَ تَارِكٌ بَعْدَ مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْكَ. So you may leave out something of what has been revealed to you. Ya Rasulullah, وَضَائِقٌ بِهِ صَدْرُكَ. And you may be distressed in your hearts with it. Or you may be distressed in your heart with when they say, and يقولوا, that they will say, لولا أنزل عليه كنز. Why has there a treasure not been sent down to him? So the pressure of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so much, so strong on him. So first he's reminded that this impulsivity does not behoove people of higher stature. And what was that pressure on him? Their repeated demand for an ayah. And since the situation of the Muslims in Mecca is becoming more and more difficult, this challenge that they're throwing at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also becoming all the more all the more difficult for him to stand in front of. And so the Quran on repeated occasions addresses Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam fairly strictly, that it may distress you, maybe it may even drive you to the point of wanting to leave out something of the Quran. That they're making all of these demands, and why doesn't just that demand be fulfilled? أو جاء معه ملك, or an angel just accompanies him. إنما أنت نذير. Remember, you are just a warner. والله على كل شيء وكيل. Allah is the one who's going to take care of everything. He's the disposer of affairs. أم يقولون افتراه. And do they say he has forged it? قل فأتوا بعشر سور مثله مفتريات. Then tell them, bring 10 similarly forged surahs. If he's made it up, why don't you make it up? You got better poets. He has no background in poetry. He has no training in poetry. He has no experience in poetry. He has no nothing of poetry that you can ever associate with him. He doesn't even understand poetry. The way people of literary taste do. He gets poetry wrong if he ever quotes it. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And you're attributing this to him, that he's made it all up. So why don't you do something similar? Bring 10 like it. وَادْعُوا مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ, and call to help those besides Allah, anyone you can, إِن كُنتُم صَادِقِينَ, if you really are true. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكُمْ, but if they do not respond to you, فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا أُنزِلَ بِعِلْمِ اللَّهِ, then you should know that indeed it is Allah, it is revealed with Allah's knowledge. It is Allah revealing this. وَأَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ, and that there is no ilah other than him. فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, so will you then become Muslim? مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتَهَا, so whoever is in pursuit of the world, life of this world and its glitter, نُوَفِّي إِلَيْهِمْ أَعْمَالَهُمْ فِيهَا, we will repay him in full for their deeds here. وَهُمْ فِيهَا لَا يُبْخَسُونَ, and they're not going to be deprived in there. If they're working hard and they're bringing the best of their potential to earn here and now in this dunya, then by all means, they'll get it. أولئك الذين ليس لهم في الآخرة إلا النار. But on the day of judgment, they have nothing, these people, other than the fire. وحبط ما صنعوا فيها, and lost is whatever they did therein. وباطل ما كانوا يعملون, and worthless, meaningless is what they used to do. أفمن كان على بينة من ربه, so is the one who stands on a clear proof from their Rabb, ويتلوه شاهد منه, and a witness from him recites it. So the revelation is testifying, is the shahid for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for the truth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمِن قَبْلِهِ كِتَابُ مُوسَى, and also a witness for him. So how many testimonies do you have in the favor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the claim that he's making? Is it self-referential? Is it just him from himself? One, you have the Quran, which couldn't be conceived as his fabrication, as something he came up with. Two, you have Kitabu Musa, the Tawrat, Imama wa Rahma, as a guide and a source of mercy. That's been there, the legacy that it has established. أُولَئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ, those people will believe in it. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِهِ مِنَ الْأَحْزَابِ, but whoever disbelieves in it from these groups, فَالنَّارُ مَوْعِدُهُ, his place is going to be in the hellfire. فَلَا تَكُ فِي مِرْيَةٍ مِّنْ, so never be in doubt about it. إِنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكَ, this is for sure the truth from your Rabb. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, but most people just do not believe. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا, and who can be more unjust than the one who fabricates a lie against Allah? أُولَٰئِكَ يُعْرَضُونَ عَلَى رَبِّهِمْ, these people are going to be produced before their Rabb. وَيَقُولُ الْأَشْهَادُ, and the witnesses will testify. All these testimonies that are coming in, they're going to be brought on the day of judgment as well. هؤلاء الذين كذبوا على ربهم, that these are the people who lied against their Rabb. And there's two ways of lying against your Rabb. You say that he said what he did not say, that this is revelation, and it's not revelation. or that it is revelation and you reject it. Ala la'natullahi ala zalimin. Without a doubt, the curse of Allah is on the ones who are unjust, who are zalim. Alladhina yasudduna an sabilillah. Those who avert others, stop them from the path of Allah. وَيَبْغُونَهَا عِوَجًا. And seek to make it crooked. وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ كَافِرُونَ. And they are the ones who deny the hereafter. Their reality, they just can't. The truth of the hereafter is something they can't swallow. They don't want to. Even when they do claim to believe in the hereafter, it's not the hereafter. It is a fabrication of their own imagination. It is their fantasy. It is their fairy tale. These people will neither be able to frustrate Allah on earth or defeat Allah in any way, nor will they find any protectors besides Him. Punishment will be multiplied for them. They were unable to hear, nor did they see. These are the ones who have lost themselves. They failed themselves. They were not able to live up to themselves. But they had good potential. They had strength, abilities, but they also had evil. Evil prevailed. All that they used to fabricate, invent, it had left them stranded. لا جرم أنهم, no doubt they are في الآخرة, in the hereafter, هم الأخسرون, the greatest losers. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, those who believed and acted righteously, وأخبتوا إلى ربهم, and they humbled themselves before their Rabb, أولئك أصحاب الجنة. These are the dwellers of paradise. هم فيها خالدون. They will live therein forever. مثل الفريقين, the example of these two groups is كالأعمى والأصم, like the blind and the deaf, والبصير والسميع, and against the seer and the hearer, the one who can see and the one who can hear, as opposed to the ones who can't do either of that. Not in the form of physical disability, but in the sense of being able to make sense of things, see things for what they really are. And that's a very human place to be in. هل يستويان مثلا? Are they similar in comparison? أفلا تذكرون. Then will you not remember? ولقد أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه, and we did send Nuh to his people. إني لكم نذير مبين, and he said, I'm for sure a warner, a clear warner for you. ألا تعبدوا إلا الله, telling you what? That there is no one worthy of worship other than Allah. إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم أليم. I fear for you the painful punishment of a day, a punishment of a painful day. فقال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه, but the chiefs, the leaders of those who denied from among his people said, ما نراك إلا بشرا مثلنا. We don't see you except to be a man like us, a human being like us. وما نراك اتبعك, and we don't see anyone following you إلا الذين هم أراذلنا بادي الرأي, except the lowest of us, the most immature in judgment. وما نرى لكم علينا من فضل. We don't see you as having any privilege over us. بل نظنكم كاذبين. Rather, we think that you are lying. So their judgment is based on what standards? You're a man like us. You're not any richer or stronger than us. Those following you, I mean, come on. The lowest of us? The idiots from among us? The weakest of us? On the basis of these criteria, we proclaim that you are a liar. قال نوح عليه السلام responded, يا قوم أرأيتم إن كنت على بينة من ربي. My people, look, if I'm bringing clear proof, am on a clear proof from my Rabb, وآتاني رحمة من عنده, and if he has given me a mercy from himself, he has chosen me, he has made me a prophet, فأميت عليكم, and that has been made so obscure to you, can't even see it. أنلزمكموها وأنتم لها كارهون. Can we force you to accept it while you are averse from it? Is there anything we can do to force you? وَيَا قَوْمِ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مَالًا. My people, I ask you no wealth for it. إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ, and my reward is only on Allah. وَمَا أَنَا بِطَارِدِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and I am not going to drive away those who believed. إِنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ, they are going to meet their Rabb. And this was a consistent pressure on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Get Change the Quran. Get rid of these people that are around you. What is this riffraff? You want us to sit on the same table as them? These slaves? These former slaves? These immigrants? These non-Meccans, non-citizens? How dare you demand us to be the same as them? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being told this has been the case since the very beginning. Nuh alayhi salam had this problem. They made these demands of him, and he said, "No way, I'm not getting rid of any of these people. They're gonna meet their Rabb. They're gonna tell on me. They're gonna stand in front of Allah and be witnesses against me that I got rid of them. They are Allah's ibad. He is their Rabb, and on account of that, they're they have rights, and they have rights over me, such that they can get me in trouble, despite being a prophet. إنهم ملاقو ربهم ولكني أراكم قوما تجهلون. Rather, I see that you are an ignorant people. You're a people overwhelmed by your emotions and your instinctive drivenness for power, for whatever is immediately in front of you, for not wanting to give up your habits of sin. That's so much. That's so overwhelming. You don't want to. You don't want to listen. وَيَا قَوْمِ, my people, مَنْ يَنْصُرُنِي مِنَ اللَّهِ إِنْ طَرَدتُّهُمْ. If I drive these away, if I drive all of them away, who's going to save me from the punishment of Allah? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Will you not then remember? Will you not be reminded? Is this no good for you? وَلَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ عِنْدِي خَزَائِنُ اللَّهِ. I did not say that I have the treasures of Allah. وَلَا أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ. Nor do I claim to have the knowledge of the unseen. وَلَا أَقُولُ إِنِّي مَلَكٌ. Neither do I say that I'm an angel. وَلَا أَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ تَزْدَرِي أَعْيُنُكُمْ. Nor do I say of those who are lowly in your eyes, لَنْ يُؤْتِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا, that Allah will not bless them with a fortune. اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ مَا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah knows best what's inside of them, what's in their hearts. إِنِّي إِذًا لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. If I do that, I will be of those who are unjust. If I do what you're asking me to do, turning them away. Although they responded, Ya Nuh, قَدْ جَادَلْتَنَا فَأَكْثَرْتَ جِدَالَنَا. You've argued enough with us. And we had long arguments with you. فَأْتِنَا بِمَا تَعِدُنَا. Bring us what you're promising us, whatever you're threatening us with. إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. If you really are truthful. قَالَ إِنَّمَا يَأْتِيكُم بِهِ اللَّهُ. No, responded, only Allah can bring it. And He will bring it upon you. Inshallah, if He wants. وَمَا أَنْتُم بِمُعْجِزِينَ. And when that happens, you're not going to be able to defeat Him. وَلَا يَنْفَعُكُمْ نُصْحِي إِنْ أَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَنْصَحَ لَكُمْ. And my counsel, my advice will not benefit you. Even though I did give you the best advice I could, I wanted your best. I had your best interest at heart. إِنْ كَانَ اللَّهُ يُرِيدُ أَنْ يُغْوِيَكُمْ. If Allah has decided to mislead you, هُوَ رَبُّكُمْ. He is your Rabb. وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And you will be brought back to Him. أَمْ يَقُولُونَ افْتَرَاهُ. So do they say He has forged it? قُلْ say إِنِ افْتَرَيْتُهُ. If really I have invented it, فَعَلَيَّ إِجْرَامِي. Then the responsibility of this crime is on me. وَأَنَا بَرِيءٌ مِّمَّا تُجْرِمُونَ. And I have nothing to do with the crimes you are committing. Let's close with this. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.